Hi, I want to make a video on something I may have said in a previous video. It's just a little saying, a little brilliantism that I came up with. And it's about, just because it's different doesn't mean it's subjective, it just means it's objectively different. Um, I think I mentioned this in passing in another video I made, and I just want to mention it up and make its own little short video surrounding that idea. How everything's different and how all of us have our own personal opinions and perspectives, and generally speaking, um, points of view and experiences. We are experiencing something different. We all have experienced different things, and we're all going to experience different things. And just because it's different and the circumstance is different, I think we can all generally understand to a certain extent that we're feeling the same thing along the same lines. It's just different for your threshold. The feeling is generally the same. If you have a hangover, the hangover is generally the same. It's just if you have the symptoms or not. The thing is even if you don't have the symptoms, you still have a hangover, right? You're still suffering from something negative. I know a hangover is something that, generally speaking, most people can relate to and understand, so that's why I'm using it as an example. And just because you don't have the symptoms, like I mentioned before, this goes along the same lines as you either experience more or less pain. So even if you have a hangover and your hangover is different, you have different symptoms, it's still a hangover. And the point that I'm trying to make is if you didn't have, since you're not having the headache and they're having the nausea, doesn't mean that if you had the nausea, you wouldn't be feeling the exact same thing if you were feeling the exact same thing and they were feeling. It's just a matter of, are you feeling more or less? And which kind? Which, is it more sharp pain? Is it more aching, dull pain? Which one is it? It doesn't really matter. It's just that you're going to feel something, and there's no real way that we're going to, and generally speaking, a negative thing, where there's no real way, like I was going on, there's no real way to know if you're suffering more or less, and that's where the vagary of unless it's obvious, unless you're having an orgasm as opposed to having your leg chopped off. Though, the difference we can obviously tell, but if someone's experiencing a headache and another person's experiencing a headache, and you have to choose who to give the medicine to, um, obviously you have to take into consideration the specific circumstance of each individual case. But sometimes it's best to just leave it up to a coin toss, because there's no real reason. You have to understand the implications of each person's future, what they've done, who's worth more in the end, and who's experiencing more pain. It's about weighing those values. And really, like I've mentioned before, you can only have so much of an expectation to have any reasonable anticipation of what you can expect in the future. So you can only do so much to expect the person that seems like they have more value, and if they were going to squander it or actually go through with it, you can only generally know from the circumstance right now, and you can do only so much projecting into the future to see if a person's going to be as useful as they that they may seem. So you can only do so much. You can only project so far and make your decision based on only so much projection and what you can expect. So there's only so much you can do based on the circumstances. Um, so yes, it was, um, we can't predict. We can only do it based off of possibilities, and create our own little expectations and what we can do to infer what may happen. What may happen in the future and what the value is, because you can't change the past, you can't fix the past, you can't change what's happening in the present. You're only going along with it, and you can only do and use your mind to change what can happen in the future to make an effect on yourself and other sentient beings, and your effect on everything that affects them as well. Every single thing has an effect. Like I mentioned, everything is an interaction in this world. It doesn't matter um, what you're doing or what you're interacting with. And to quote the Rush song, right? The Rush song. Even if you haven't chosen, you've still made a choice. I hope I get more views because of that, because I made a reference. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I guess back to the main point. Because it's different doesn't mean, yeah, we all have our own subjective little opinions and experiences, not just experiences, opinions, whatever it is, relationship, yeah, opinions and experiences, our biases, our bigotries. Just because they're different, just because we value them, I would say in many cases, if you can't accept the truth, then obviously all these things mean something, and that they're all objective, that they're all experiencing and they're all real. It doesn't matter if you can put your finger on it. It doesn't matter that you know exactly how much or where, when, why, who, what, when, where, why. Yeah, who, what, when, where, why. You're begging the question because you know there's a who, a what, a when, where, and a why. If you can beg the question, you know there's an objective truth. If you're asking a question, you're expecting a truth in the end. You're expecting at least a reasonable answer for which you can at least mutually understand something. So if you're begging the question by asking one, there's obviously something that you're missing and you're trying to understand. Therefore, there's an objective truth that you're basing that off of. And there's no way you can avoid that. So if you're asking a question, you're pretty much saying, yes, let me know more. And if you lie, then I won't know. And if you don't lie, I will know. And obviously, if someone lies to you about there's no cars crossing the road, and you put some earplugs in and you blindfold them, and then they get hit, and obviously it doesn't matter that they believe it or not, they still got hit, and they can deny it all they want. In many cases, that's what's happening. They have a negative experience, they can deny the truth all they want. It doesn't mean it doesn't change the fact that it's happening. It doesn't matter what's happening in here, because that's all part of the game as well. Your delusions, whatever, that's all part of the game that's moving. It's the engine that's moving and thrusting, going forward along the road in the right direction. In many cases, it seems like the wrong direction, but that's the case. There's no way you can change that fact. So, or just because you can't put your finger on it, there's so many, like I mentioned, all these distinctions that we have doesn't mean that there isn't an objective truth that's existing. There is an objective truth that's existing, and the fact that we are not, we find ourselves incapable of seeing all those things, or at least giving an answer to all these things and stating them from our opinion, our voice, our point of view, in every single which way, left, right, up, down, in every single which way possible. It doesn't matter. There's an objective truth that's existing, and just because it's different doesn't mean it's subjective. It just means it's objectively different. And that's, I guess, what I want you to get away with in this video is that concept of being objectively different more than anything else. It's just different objectively. It's not different because it's subjective. It's just objectively different. There's not much to understand there. So I think that's all I want to say. Try to do the same thing that I was doing before, make these videos under 10 minutes, because there's just too many goddamn videos to make. So too many ideas going through the head, and when you're making these videos, oof, and all these different things sprout, and different ideas sprout out of your head, it gets really cumbersome. So anyway, if I have anything else to say on the subject, I'll mention it. If I feel like I've missed a golden point, I can always mention it in another video. But it's always best to get in the video they're about. But what can you do? I'll just try. I'll try my best. So yeah, thank you, and until next time, bye.